What would your life look like if you practiced loving life moment by moment by moment? Think about it. What would that do for your happiness, for your fulfillment, for your emotional well-being, for your satisfaction, for your relationship, for your career, for your creativity, for your potential? What if you practiced loving life experience by experience by experience? You see, most of the time we are actually unconsciously fighting life. We're actually doing the exact opposite of that. And really take this into consideration, the fact that it's unconscious. Moment by moment, we're tense. We're struggling against our experience. We don't like what we feel. We don't like what life has presented to us. We push it away. We battle against life. And is it ever actually worth it? Does it actually serve us? Does it actually help us to be in this constant state of struggle against the experience? The reality is that that's a tiring thing. That is not pleasant. That's actually very, very painful. It's a lot of suffering that goes into that. We have to give a lot of energy to maintaining that struggle against experience. Letting go, surrender, practicing loving life gives us that energy back. You see, when we are resisting life, we're actually doing this out of an unconscious fear, right? We're actually acting from this internal place of, this is not okay. Life isn't going to bring me what I need. I'm unsafe, etc. There's all these deeply ingrained stories and emotions and energies inside of us that are controlling us that we don't shine much awareness on. They're kind of acting from the shadows, determining our life, and they're not really leading us in a very great direction. So back to the original point, what would your life look like if you practiced loving life? What if instead of resisting this experience right now, you learned how to ease into it? What if when you had a painful emotion, you didn't hate it and try and numb it out or push it away, but you learned how to befriend it, how to just sit with it, how to feel it, how to allow it to arise and pass, how to really give it your attention, how to give it love? What do you think that would do to that emotion? You can kind of see where I'm going with this, right? A lot of this sort of idea of accepting and loving life, it's also about actually loving yourself. Now again, because we spend so much time struggling and fighting against life, we do the exact same thing with ourselves. There's parts of us that we don't like, that we push and fight against, and it's not comfortable. It's suffering. It's a lot of psychological suffering for absolutely no real reason. It's not needed. It's unnecessary. So again, the parts of you that you struggle against, what if you let that struggle go? How would that change your relationship to those parts of you? See, think about a real human relationship. Imagine if you actually fought against someone continuously. Of course, that's a really bad relationship. That relationship is absolutely terrible. What if you actually learned how to deeply see the other person, how to accept them, including their limitations, including the character flaws that they have? What if you learned to actually open your heart to the full spectrum of life, the up and the down, right? The positive, the negative? You see, how would that impact your relationship to life, your experience of it, your clarity of it, your understanding of it? See, if you're constantly struggling against another person in a relationship, it's going to be a terrible relationship. And you're constantly in relationship to life. Right now, you're in relationship to this video, you're in relationship to your surroundings, you're in relationship to what's going on inside of you, your thoughts, your emotions, your sub-personalities, you're in relationship to the very source of creation. What if, instead of fighting against all of these facts of life, you just learn to love them? And that's really the love of truth. The love of experience is the love of truth. The love of what experience actually is the love of truth. So, another way of saying what if you practiced love is, what if you really cared about truth? What if you really cared about what experience is, right? What it truly is, and you learn to fully accept that, right? If you loved truth, you would love life, because life is truth. This experience is truth. This experience is what life really is. So the more and more you fall in love with direct experience, the more and more you actually love life. The more and more you fall in love with truth, the more and more connected you become with life. The more and more connected you become with yourself. So really contemplate it. If you really cared about truth, if you really cared about falling in love with life, what would you actually be doing? How would you be spending your time? What kind of thoughts would you have? How much time would you dedicate to yourself? Would you practice meditation? You see, meditation is so central in this because all we're doing is observing reality. All we're doing is observing our present experience. We're letting go of control of it. We're letting go of our sort of attachments and our neuroticism and our manipulations. We're learning how to let life move organically, how to let an emotion move organically, how to let a thought move organically, how to not manipulate and constantly interfere with our experience, how to listen to experience. Would you meditate if you actually, took this seriously? Would you sit down and would you actually give yourself the attention that you need? Or would you distract yourself by going on YouTube, scrolling to the next video and the next video, right? Would you let your attention span decline, right? And attention spans are in a rapid decline nowadays because of the hyper-edited content and social media feeds. If you really loved yourself, would you let yourself destroy your attention span? And again, you don't really need to be like an absolute master at this, right? Everyone, for the most part, is going to have parts of themselves that they struggle against or they, don't accept, and they're unconscious, right? Everyone has a shadow. And the point isn't to be absolutely perfect here, but the point is to move towards a healthier state of being, to actually clean up a lot of the unconscious behaviors that shape up our lives and actually sabotage our lives. You see, who would you be if right now in this moment you decided to just completely let go and open to it, instead of tensing up in your body and having stories of like why I can't enjoy this experience right now, why can't I can't relax in this experience right now, I got to do this next thing, I got to do this thing, I got to wait till I get that. What if you just fully let yourself go and open to this experience, allowing your heart to open, right? Like literally allowing your physical chest area here and your heart region to relax and just soften. Same thing with your belly. Allow it to just soften, right? Notice the tension that you hold in your body all the time. That's a physiological manifestation of your psychological tension and your resistance to yourself. So who would you be if instead of fighting and struggling, you just practiced loving experience? No, I'd probably be some loser hippie if I did that. This just kind of sounds like some hippie nonsense now, love and all this stuff. But it's really not. It's actually psychological maturity. It's actually psychological development, spiritual, emotional, psychological development. Right? An immature, undeveloped ego fights against reality nonstop, always pushing for what they want, very self-oriented, exclusively selfish, and doesn't give a damn about anything else. What we're talking about here is a more all-encompassing love. The ability to embrace experience as it is, its limitations, its problems, its shortcomings, the shortcomings of people, the shortcomings of yourself, your own limitations, etc. And to really just kind of practice holding, right, the problems of life, the hardships of life with a soft heart. And even all the great things too, right? Counterintuitively, right? This helps you to really enjoy life, right? Who'd have thought, right? By actually learning to love the challenges of life, by learning to love all the things that we conventionally bitch and moan against, right? We bitch and moan about them nonstop. And we hate them and we want to get rid of them, right? Instead of hating them, right? Instead of doing all that stuff, who'd have thought by practicing, embracing them, and having fun with them, that actually enhances, right, increases the kind of quality of our life. This actually makes life more enjoyable. Ask yourself, how can I have more fun in my life? This is something that I always do whenever I'm maybe like doing the dishes, for example, and maybe I don't really want to be doing them and I'm doing them, right? I'll just ask the question, how can I have more fun doing this? How can I have more fun walking down the street? I do this all the time in my business. How can I have more fun running my business? How can I have more fun doing X? And this doesn't mean that I need hyper stimulation, but this means maybe I can just relax into it more and be a little bit more lighthearted within myself. I can hold the situation a bit more gently. Maybe I break out into spontaneous dance and I just start dancing because that's what's fun in the moment, right? It's spontaneous and it's light. So if I can kind of summarize everything that I've said in this video, what would it be? Right? It's number one, we struggle and fight against life unnecessarily, and we don't have to do it. It's an unconscious thing that we do, and we can actually choose to not do that because we are very powerful, although that requires a different level of consciousness that you need to actually care about reaching. Number two, if you practice loving life, you actually see life more clear because you're not fighting against it. You're not manipulating experience to serve yourself all the time. You're seeing experience as it is. You're seeing the truth of experience. The more and more you accept direct experience, actual life, the more your kind of ego and all its deceptions and all these kind of psychological mechanisms that distort reality, the more that begins to fade away for the most part. Because all that's very necessary for survival, right? But the second that you're not scrambling to get food, etc., the second you can watch this video and, you're in a safe enough environment, those kind of mechanisms, you don't really need it. So, put simply, the more you love life, the more accurate your perception of life actually becomes. The more you surrender to the experience, the more you accept the experience that you have, the clearer you're capable of seeing it because your ego is less involved in it. You're not manipulating and interfering it so much. You're not trying to get an outcome out of it for survival purposes. You can't see life clearly when your survival agenda is always wrapped up in what you're doing. So detachment from survival here is really important. And this doesn't mean that you don't eat or breathe or anything like that, but this means that the psychology that you have is super optimized for survival. And these mechanisms, although they're very, very useful, they're not always necessary, and they're very stressful. It's stressful to actually be in that state all the time. What if you learn to just relax it and move beyond survival? And then when you're doing your survival stuff, like you're at work or you're talking to people or you're eating, right? You learned how to do that with a full awareness and a love for it. How would that actually change your survival? What would that do to your psychology, right? Imagine what your mind would look like if you practiced loving life for 10,000 hours. Imagine how happy you would be, right? Imagine the kind of joy that you would feel. Imagine the love that you would have for the people around you, for the planet, for yourself, for your kids, for, your husband, your wife, etc. Imagine the love that you would simply feel. Imagine how much pleasure you would actually experience. Imagine how mature you would be if you learned how to love all the parts of you that you struggle against and all the parts of life that are challenging and hard. Wow, there's a really beautiful squirrel right here. What would your life look like if you practiced this every single day for a minimum of 1 hour per day? For the next 1 hour, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to just relax into my experience and totally accept it as it is, surrender to it, and actually open my heart to it. I'm going to see how great that feels, and I'm not going to close to my experience. What would that do? So that's it for this video. I'm actually doing an online community at the moment, doing weekly group coaching. So if you want to join, we talk about this kind of stuff. We go very, very in depth in those calls on all kinds of spiritual, psychological phenomena, right? I'm also doing one-to-one coaching, right? A lot of this is centered around raising your consciousness. It's centered around emotional well-being and healing trauma. It's centered around understanding your own psychology. It's centered around understanding what it means to be a conscious creator in life. So if you're interested in that, I'd recommend checking it out. The link is in the description and the pinned comment. Take it easy.